Hi. Plant-based luncheon meat. Okay, this is supposed to be steak, and it's $10 a pound. Uh, let's go right to the tasting, then we'll talk about plant-based food. Now, it's got quite a smell to it, but okay. Would this in any way confuse you that it was steak? Oh, it's got fiber in it, so that it, okay, let's try. Huh. It's not completely homogeneous. They kind of have the smell right. Well, eating it alone, you'd never confuse this for steak or beef, however you want to say it. So the question is, we put this in a sandwich with lettuce and mayonnaise, which I'll do when I get home. Can it take the place of steak or not? Odd. So, of course, something that people use now for substituting for meat is ages old, and that is, of course, tofu. That's made out of beans. We transitioned more modern, not that everybody is, there's all kinds of tofu things and recipes, and people use it extensively, but then we have the advent of soy protein based things. So they went through and did the same sort of thing, try to make the soy protein taste like something else. Usually you never want it to taste like what it is. You want it to taste like what you want it to taste like. So I mean, you've got really three factors here. It's got to look the part, people are going to see it. It's got to smell the right smell, and of course it has to have the right taste. And I guess you could say texture too. This does have a kind of meat texture to it, so they did that part really well. The world went bonkers with soy protein based things until they started having some problems. Or what they found was soy protein is shaped like estrogen, and it can mimic estrogen in the body. So they even came out with women's things to deal with menopause, and they're basically soy pills. So kind of, this kind of acted like estrogen, so it kind of partly maybe would trick your body into think you had the normal estrogen levels. But then, of course, they realized, well, that's not good for men. They used to say, oh, yeah, eat all the soy protein you want. And now they're more like, stay under this level, which I'm not sure what that level is. But, of course, now we have the advent of genetically modified organisms, okay? Gene splicing, sometimes between completely different species. And then we have kind of this backlash against soy because, probably 99% of all the soy that's grown in this country is genetically modified. And even if you think you're planting soybeans that aren't, all they have to do is have some pollen come from another field that has it, and that makes your soybeans genetically modified too. Someone said this, and I don't think this is exactly true, but someone claimed it was impossible to grow or find non-genetically modified soy in the United States at all. And so then, because of that, we switch, and now we're on to pea protein. So they take the peas, they pull out the protein. I mean, they don't want to have the pea taste because, of course, they want to use it in things like, something that tastes like steak, something that, is like hamburger, and, whatever it is. I've tried some of those products before, and you need a lot of imagination to think that those are substitutes or not. And what you see in the stores is an increasing amount of shelf space to plant-based protein. In the meat section it usually is, because that's what it wants to compete with. But of course, it's way expensive. So we're paying, $10 a pound for this when we can get the real thing much cheaper. And I know one of the big plant protein-based companies just went through some significant financial troubles because, people just don't buy it. It's out there. It's just like the Burger King. I don't know if McDonald's did it. Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts were doing a no meat sandwich. So in other words, instead of having the sausage, they would have, or hamburger, it would be one of these derivatives, from this pea protein. And it would cost you $1 more for that sandwich. And it just didn't taste close enough to what it was supposed to be. It'd be better maybe them just to say, well, no, it's not supposed to taste like meat. It's plants. It's supposed to taste like plants. But some of the restaurants, I think one of the fast food places discontinued it because they found that people were just buying it, that $1 extra. And it's funny because I did one video where I looked at the nutritional information basically on the, this meat substitute that the fast food place was using, putting it against the meat version. And what you found was you're paying $1 more, but it has just as much salt, just as much fat, just as much, whatever. So in other words, as far as a healthy food choice, it wasn't spending that extra $1. I guess you could only say maybe you're doing it on some moral grounds that you're a vegetarian, so you would buy it. But you certainly wouldn't buy it because it's more healthy, because they weren't. They just as much salt, fat, all of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. Now, what they're trying to get people interested in, of course, is insects. You can take, crickets, grind them up, you like dehydrate them first, dry them, freeze dry them, whatever. Then you can grind it into a powder, and that powder is a complete protein, very high in protein, and then you can put it in things. In this form, you can make, you could put it in pancakes, put it in some kind of protein bar, all these different things you could do with it. And I'm sure if it was less expensive, you would have the possibility of turning it back into something, having a completely or mostly, like hamburger or sausage that's basically made out of insects, but out of crickets or mealworms. But it would of course, have to mimic the sausage and the hamburger type taste. But with that now, we're still got the problem of it's about $35 a pound for or more for the insect powder. So flour, they call it sometimes too, although it doesn't have any gluten in it or anything, so you can't make a loaf of bread out of it because it won't rise, because there's nothing to catch the the CO2 from the yeast, and it just isn't going to work unless you do a lot of jumping through hoops. But it's just way too expensive right now. But a lot of countries, especially Asian countries, insects can make up a significant portion of their meat, their food, and they're brought up doing it, so they're used to it. I mean, we look at something. I even got, she's moved since, but I was friends with a woman from Cambodia in her family because she had a special needs child, and I was actually working for a company that was providing some services, and that's how I ended up meeting them, being out with one of their sons doing things. And I had her one time go and get me. I asked her to get me some insects. She was like, "Oh, I'm going down to Boston." She would go down to Boston to the big markets, Asian markets, and get things. She had a store for a while up here. I said, "Oh, bring back an insect." He says, "Oh, okay." So she brought me back this humongous water bug, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't. It was so revolting looking at to me that I couldn't do it. I couldn't eat it. I had to throw it out. But if the thing's dried and ground up, you don't see it. You can still know it's there, but the ugly factor of just looking at it, being grossed out by it, the shock there is gone when it's in powder form, I guess. But I think that I don't know how long it will be before that really hit some kind of mainstream type thing where it actually shows up in grocery stores. You can buy certain products, expensive products made with insects. There's a company that makes some kind of cookies, I believe, and they're basically, they're protein-filled cookies because they've got a portion of the flour has been replaced with insects, and it makes instead of just turning into a cookie that's just humongous amount of calories and low in protein, all of a sudden you've made a cookie. Maybe it will still have that amount of calories, but it's got this complete protein in it as well. So there we go. There's a little history of insects and not insects, non plant non-meat base. I got that mixed up. It's an example of we've got the plant-based things substituting for meat, and then we have this other issue that's kind of different but could become prominent, the idea of insects replacing other types of animal meat. Technically, an insect is an animal too, so you can't just say it's plant-based or insect-based. It's still an animal, but you're switching the proteins out for something else because insect farming uses incredibly less amount of food to produce high-quality protein. Chickens, if you go from eating beef to chickens use quite a bit less of the earth resources to produce a pound of meat. Well, insects go way down again with that and using a really, really small amount of food and water and all of this to produce, a good amount of protein. So we'll see where all that goes. Bye.